اتفقت نينوي تي في مدام يقرا بن كالاشو ديلي مزبرانة كالدين American Chamber of Commerce كاليفورنيا. بس مرحبا ديوت مجاوب البقارديا. Can you tell us what we can do, we Assyrians of diaspora, to improve the situation of our people in the Middle East, in Iraq in particular, in Syria in general?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. It's a really important question. I think the number one thing that people can do is to get behind this idea of an Assyrian parliament. The Assyrian parliament idea has been introduced and is in full force effect as of today at the Assyrian Convention in Chicago 2015. And basically, essentially, what we are tasked with is to make sure that a transparent and fully democratic election to elect an Assyrian parliament in the diaspora is not just a dream, that it's actually going to come true. So what people can do is go to AssyrianParliament.org, stay updated on current events, on what we're doing, get involved. We have different work groups, whether it's elections work group or whether you want to advocate or help in PR. That's really the need and what people are looking for. Basically, this parliament eventually will be a one-voice form of government for Assyrians globally. It's not a government taking place of the current government in Iraq. I want to make sure. It's not a government that's going to be replacing the Iraqi government or undermining the elected officials in Iraq or other organizations. This is simply in the diaspora. It's going to be anywhere and everywhere, not in Iraq. We are going to assist the government in Iraq, elected officials that share the same ideas as us. We are going to approach Western governments and really fight for our people. But I want to encourage everybody to support the Assyrian parliament idea. I think this is the time is now, if not now, then never.
Miaqra Ben, why it's important to have an Assyrian parliament? Which is the problem of our nation? Is a lack of leadership? Is maybe the political parties are not active or sufficient to obtain our rights? Why we need an Assyrian parliament?
So I wouldn't say that the current organizations and political parties are inactive or ineffective. That's not true. I think that they have a role and they're doing the best they can fulfilling that role. The problem is that the circumstance in the Middle East is so dire and so big that they need help, especially in the Western world. Let me use, for example, America. The problem is that anytime there's a crisis and that crisis affects the Assyrian, Chaldean, or Syriac communities globally, you get different organizations that approach either the State Department or the White House or any other Western country that's a superpower and say, we want this. Somebody else goes up to them and says, we want this. Somebody else and a church goes up to them and says, we want this. The problem is that non-Assyrian, Chaldean, or Syriac elected officials, like American elected officials, for instance, they sit back and say, what do you guys want? This guy comes up and says he wants this, and this organization says they want this. And it's not honed into one voice behind one speaking governmental power that represents people globally. That's the difference, and that's what we want. That's what makes it important, is one voice, one message. You get to vote for your elected official representing you, and if they do a great job, great. If they do a bad job, then you vote them out. It's worked for other countries, and that's why it's really important. Other organizations or churches or other leaders, they have their role, and we respect them for that. The thing is, the game changer is, what hasn't worked, and what we keep repeating is that everybody goes into America, to France, to the UK, and says, we want this, we want this, we want that, and they're confused. And surely anybody would be confused, and so we're eliminating that confusion by getting behind one idea.
But we have a problem, Ben, because we are a diaspora nation. So how will work this Assyrian parliament? How that will be represented in different countries in the world?
So this idea of parliament is a global thing. So for people in France, You are going to have your own elected officials representing either different districts, cities, and I don't quite know how France does it, but in America we have states. So in the United States we're going to have, let's say for example, there are 100,000 Chaldean, Assyrian, Syriacs in California. Well, we would probably divide the number of parliamentary representatives based on that demographic. If you have less amount of Assyrians, Chaldeans, and Syriacs, let's say in Nevada, you might have 10 representatives as opposed to 30, as opposed to 50. But this is global. I mean, we're not going to forget about our brothers and sisters in France, in Sweden, in Germany. This is a global thing. Just because it started here in America, it doesn't mean that we're going to forget about you. Actually, we want you more. We want you more to be involved because there's only so many things we can do. We want to hear from you. We want your involvement. We want your ideas. Nothing is set in stone. Clearly, we don't have all the answers, but this is a global effort.
Which is the next step in the construction of the Assyrian Parliament?
Is to hone in and to figure out exactly, to pinpoint how many Assyrians, Chaldeans, and Syriacs are there worldwide, and to, just like you said, we're going to draw a map and figure out exactly how many parliamentary members you can vote for if you're from France, if you're from Lebanon, if you're from Australia, if you're from California or America. And the most important thing is, if you support the idea, if you're going to sit back and say, you know what, this is a lofty idea, you have to vote with your pocketbooks, which means that you have to go to the website and donate, because this is going to cost money. Obviously, putting a worldwide election where we issue voter ID cards to every Chaldean, Assyrian, and Syriac to get them to vote costs money. So that's our next step, is to do interviews like this and to reach out to the worldwide audience and say, we want you to be involved, and please donate some money. I mean, we're not talking about thousands of dollars here, because there's let's say 3 million of us around the world. If everybody gave $10 a month or $5 a month, we can make this happen in a year. So that's the next step, is an aggressive PR campaign to talk to people like you, news stations throughout the world, and to direct them to the website and to direct them to the cause.
Mm-hmm. So last question, in ideal conditions, when the Assyrian Parliament will be effective?
I think a realistic answer to tell you would be more than a year, less than 2 years. I mean, I think we all put a goal within ourselves and we said, you know what, we're going to try this thing and give it 110%. If within 2 years we can't get it going, then we can't get it going, and we tried. But at least we tried. And it's one of those things where we have nothing to lose at this point, but everything to gain. If we end up trying and nothing happens in 2 years, then we would find ourselves in the same place as we are now. But in 2 years, if we check back and we're like, you know what, this thing worked, and there's an election going, then we just gained everything, and it's a game changer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.